All right, so another episode of Tomfoolery. We Since we were last on, I've been messing around, making a couple videos here and there. I had one I kind of enjoyed making just because I like I like I really like my dollar bills turn the same direction, and I actually manage a store where you have to have the dollar bills turn the same direction if you're working for me. It is very important to me. So I made this video right here. You want proof of the decaying effect in our current society right now? I went to the bank today, went to the ATM, got $100 from the ATM, and the bills were not turned the same direction. It is ridiculous. You want your bills all facing the same direction, and when even the bank is not giving you your bills facing the same direction, that is insane. They gotta be turned the same direction. They gotta face the same direction. Not this or none of that. So I took one of those 20s in because I needed change. Okay? So I took it in to the bank, and the teller handed me back change, turned all sorts of other different directions. And I blamed the left. And Trump. All right, so I went from that, posted it online, had a bunch of people sharing it. I got one right here. It says this is dumb stuff. They are indoctrinating people with trying to distract people from the real issues by making ignorant shit like this and not speaking nothing about the truth. Goes on to kind of say I'm distracting people and things like that by making videos like this, and then kind of challenges me to bring him on the podcast, let him actually tell me what the truth is. And so today we got Todd Church here with us. What's up, Todd?
How you doing, brother?
All right, man. Now, since then, obviously, we've talked. You know, you recognize it as a joke. You took it seriously because I'm sure there are things that you're upset about. That you see that and kind of want to attack everything that you feel like is attacking you or is attacking the truth and kind of hurting you. And so you went ahead and went in on
us all.
Yeah, you went ahead and went in on that, and it got me interested enough to look at what more you had out there. I really had to track you down to kind of find you because you got numerous pages that you got to skip around here and there, and you do a lot of I don't know how else to say it. You do a lot of preaching. Like people watch you, coming on and just do saying how you feel about society. Mainly, and government and big organizations and things like that. So if I was to ask you right now in America, what do you have maybe the biggest problem with, or what is something that you feel like you're being lied to about the most?
That we're all pretty much slaves.
Okay.
That we're all just being used as pawns against each other, and the ways that they have indoctrinated everyone to make sure that we are fighting these wars that are lies to take over these other countries, to make more enslavement for more people, because the body of the people is actually the profit for these elite.
Okay, so in those wars, how are we actually like being turned into slaves? You mean like as soldiers we're slaves, or you mean like citizens just in their everyday
Just
lives have?
as citizens, period. We go to the education system to be educated by the history that lies to us about who's supposed to have been trying to come and invade us as Americans, so that we're indoctrinated with these things, so that we feel a certain way about being able to go and fight for freedoms that we believe are freedoms, but really we're fighting for this machine to be able to take over the world, and for these people to be able to use us with the finances that they give us to be able to go and take over and invade these countries, to be able to take the resources, and also not only take the resources, but also take the people, to have new slaves, to be able to make them debt slaves.
Okay, so would you call yourself a conspiracy theorist?
Just truth. I just want,
Okay.
I want the truth out there. Conspiracies, if you think about conspiracies, it's just two or more people conspiring to do something against someone or all of us. And I think that that's pretty clear what's going on. You know, a lot of conspiracies become facts nowadays. Like,
So when you say that we're in wars where we're being lied to about what we're actually fighting against, the first thing that comes to my mind is 9/11. Are you? Which is why I ask if you're a conspiracy theorist, because are you insinuating that
I'm
9/11?
everything you're not. I'm everything that you're never supposed to be comfortable saying. You know, so if it's conspiracy, if it's truther, if it's spiritual, we're not supposed to agree with any of these things, so that we can feel uncomfortable about being around these types of people, so that we don't listen to the information, so that we can never figure out anything about the truth for ourselves, because it seems weird.
I agree with you in part. So I was actually just saying this to somebody else today. If you, because they're like, you're always kind of controversial. You always like to argue. You always have to test everything and try everybody. And I said, if you believe in something, you don't know you believe it until you have tested it. You don't know that it's true until you have had somebody claim it to be fake and still been able to hold your ground. And
Yes.
so I agree with you on that part. But are you saying that technically 9/11 didn't happen the way that
No,
it said?
I believe that 9/11 happened, but I think that it was a rigged demolition. I believe that. I think that it's possible. Not even possible. I believe that the government did it to put fear in us. I believe that it was a part of something that was done for us to be in fear, so that we could go over there and take over Afghanistan, to be able to take over the poppy fields, to be able to flood the streets with the heroin epidemic that is going on right now, for the population control, to be able to go ahead and kill as many people off as they can.
So mainly Bush, heading kind of all of this up, is going to place insurgents into these little projects to eventually make it to where he can go to war, maybe take over oil fields and governments and all sorts of things like that. And I understand the argument for that, and where the dots connect. Where the dots stop connecting and drop off a cliff is when 4 years later, or every 4 years, we have another election, and then somebody else is able to get voted in, and the thought that all of these people go into the presidency claiming to fix America and have America's best interests at heart, but when they get there, then they're fed this information of, hey, look, actually what happened was this, and you need to continue on down that path, or you're going to have problems from very powerful people, and that they go along with it. That's where I have a bit of an issue, is that every single one of them is going to continue buying into it. or is it fear that they would buy into it for? Is it what makes every other president then buy into the same idea or keep going down the same path that the ones before them went down?
They're already involved in these families, and they're already being trained from a young child to be able to be in the positions that they're going to be in and be the presidents. They already know who they're going to put into the presidency from a very young age, because these are parts of families that are all connected together to where they're able to know this child right here is being raised for this position, and this is what we need to train this child all the way up for our big movie.
I don't disagree that power definitely has a lot to do with it. I think power, hierarchies, things like that have a lot to do with it. Somebody like you or me are going to have a much lower chance of becoming president than somebody like a Donald Trump, who is born into power and who is kind of brought up to be able to do these things. But in order for that to be true, we, the people, our votes don't actually count then, right?
No, they don't.
And that's been, I mean, it has been tested before on whether or not they count, and every time it comes back that yes, like there are problems here and there, but overall we're getting mass numbers that are correct for the most part by the millions. And
well, what
so,
they're lying to us for. Because when they control the media and they control all networks, they control the newspapers, it's only, I think, 5 families now that control everything that we ingest in our eyes and our ears from a very young age, whether it's the cartoons, whether it's the TV shows, no matter what it is, the music, everything, these people control it. So if they can control the narrative of every thought that we are supposed to perceive about our life and what we're supposed to live by, and the codes that we're supposed to live by, and the beliefs that we're supposed to live by, we're learning these things, and we don't have very much time to think for ourselves because we're at work. And also they control the constructs of work and school and education. So when they control all of these things, they've had their hands in everything about us from the very beginning, whether it was religion or anything. So now
go ahead.
They have the narrative. They put it in everything. So it doesn't matter if it's a television show that you would think that R&B type style people would be watching and listening to, or a country type person, because all of the genres of the people is usually really constructed by the music that they listen to. So if you're listening to this certain music, you're going to be this certain type of person. It's going to be a racist person towards this person because of everything that you're going to watch these certain television shows for your genre of music. Just like if you're a black person, you're going to watch these television shows, your genre of music. If you're a Mexican person, you're going to watch your Mexican movies and whatever. It's all genres of television shows. Everything of the genre of music makes the genre of your life, your dress code, your thoughts, your beliefs, what's been handed down from your family generation to generation. It's going to be in every genre, but it's going to also be the divide in every genre of whatever the music is. It's going to be divided. Like, so the country guy, they don't really like the black people like that. The rock and roll guys, they really don't like the black people like that. They'll like certain things, but also they'll have drugs, alcohol, relationship problems. If you listen to this music and really pay attention to this stuff, you'll see that every part of it, every aspect of it, is everything to do with even the politics, the ways that the things are being shaped, the religious beliefs. So now if they can put just little bits and pieces in every part of your genres of music and life, you're going to believe what they're hypnotizing you to make you believe, especially with subliminal messages and commercials, everything. So if your favorite icons are telling you something, you're going to believe and trust in them because they have something more than you. And you feel like you want to be them. And you trust them through life.
I agree with you on small parts of this. Okay. Yeah. So I definitely, the media has a bias. Okay. I do believe that the media believes in their bias though. I don't think that somebody's telling them, hey, you have to pretend to have this bias from now on. I believe that the people who we see on television and the people who are making these movies and things like that, I think that they believe in the bias that they are pushing as well. I think that if the government was actually controlling this, or even higher ups that were more powerful, yes, the bankers, people like that, I think if they were actually controlling stuff like this, that our country would look a lot more like North Korea than it looks like America.
You don't think we're heading into that direction? You ever seen the movie George Orwell's 1984?
No, I haven't, but I do think that socialism is kind of becoming more and more prominent and acceptable, and I think that through socialism, then communism becomes more and more acceptable. But at the same time, I think that there's always going to be people out there who believe that sort of thing. But for the most part, the majority, when you look at polling and things like that, most everybody doesn't even agree with that stuff. They don't want socialist organizations. They don't want, tyranny. They don't want things like that overall. And the main part that probably the biggest problem I would have with these sorts of ideas is that it is not in the human nature to keep secrets well, okay? Not to keep them well. And so people are always eventually going to come out. They're going to be ousted. They're going to be thrown out there into the public view, and they will be destroyed for all of time and eternity. And all of their ideas will go with them. And the ideas that you have are normally things that would have to take hundreds and hundreds of years to build on. And I don't know how far back that you would be willing to say this goes, but
I'm sure it goes probably thousands.
Well, our founding fathers, when it comes to America, because everything that I'm really interested in politics and kind of the control it has on society, because there is a huge difference between politics and society. And I separate the two when it comes to laws and what I believe is right or moral. But I think that the people who created this country, I don't want to believe that they had any sort of intent like that. And in order for a lot of this stuff to even be true, it would have had to have started maybe even that far back, right?
Oh, definitely. Why do you think that the pyramids are on the dollar bill with the all-seeing eye on it? And then where do you think everything was built from? It had to come from slavery. Every part of life came from slavery. So before, they had to beat people into submission. And when you have a clique of people that are trying to take over a place, you have to have a clique of people that are wanting to take over a place. So that's what they have done. These people that was greedy, going and taking people's land, whether it was, and they had to make a story that was believable so that it seems like somebody wasn't taking this world over. They had to make their lies his stories. So when they made his stories, it had to work for the elite so that we will go and fight for even more lies when we built their weaponry and built their technology.
That's a good point. I don't disagree with what you're saying, only that it would have to happen on such a massive scale, man. I mean, the amount of people that would have to buy into this without someone like you or me being like, yo, hold up. We can't be doing all that. And that would have to be also somebody in power. I mean, people in power aren't always these monstrous and devious people with horrible ideas. I mean, you and me at any point could win the freaking lottery and become one of these very powerful people. And
no.
and then all this. Okay. We can't win the lottery.
Well, even if we won the lottery, we would never be able to become one of these powerful people on a certain level, because as soon as you tried to start exposing these people, they would make sure your ass was gone.
I don't disagree that that happens, but the fact that it would be on such a large scale, that's where I all of a sudden have a problem with it, is that that even if your father and my father raised us up to believe these things, there's things out there like YouTube where we can go and watch these videos. You have videos all over Facebook that you and me would not be exposed to the truth at some point, question our own ideals, and then push against it in the end. When that hasn't happened yet, somebody would have done it, right? Somebody would have grown up with this stuff, with this brainwashing, and eventually stopped to think, dude, there's no way this can be right. I gotta somehow infiltrate the system and expose it for what it really is without anybody knowing I'm doing it. And I haven't seen that personally.
Well, they know everything that every single person is doing right now at all times. So they're, especially the ways that we are being censored. If it wasn't true, why are they censoring it?
If it was true, why are you allowed to do anything on Facebook or YouTube whatsoever?
Because there's a lot of people that are starting to do this stuff, and I think that they really want certain parts of this truth out, because it's a part of like the art of war. You have to allow the people to know how much power you actually have.
But if that's true, there would be a face to it.
Oh, they put faces. They put faces. They're putting this Illuminati face. They're putting this Illuminati face for fear. They're putting the bankers, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Bilderbergs, Morgan and Freeman. They're putting all of this for the fear.
But their own people are going to come out and also disprove that those even exist.
Yes.
Their own people are going to come out and say there is no Illuminati. The Rothschilds aren't doing this. The Koch brothers aren't doing that. So if they want to be feared and look like they have a lot of power, then they can't at the same time pretend that they don't even exist.
Well, if you dig deep enough into looking into the ways that the Federal Reserve really was made and the Titanic was sunk because of these people that was the powerful people that didn't want anything to do with these people being able to take over and print the money out of thin air like they have to be able to do what they've done. And then you start going down the path of the birth certificate and how the birth certificate really, we are a straw man and we ain't even an actual physical person on this paperwork. We are the debt slave that they're getting these loans and stuff on for our enslavement, for whatever it is, whatever environment and area that you're from. If you're one of these kids like where I came from as a welfare kid and stuff, they know that they're going to make the money off of the criminal activities and stuff like that. So they think about how much money they're going to make from this child, from your environment and my neighbor, whether he's black or white or whoever, and our ancestors before us, our moms and our dads and our grandmothers and grandfathers, they can see whatever the work ethic was from them, whether it was them going to jail or prison for the criminal activities of getting $30,000 or $40,000 per head for that person because of whatever the tax dollars is. So they know how much money they're going to make from this person throughout their lifetime because of wherever they're at. If you're going to college or something and you're going to be a doctor or a lawyer, they know what kind of money they're going to make off of you. Each one of us has a certain amount of money that we are worth through whatever it was in our history from our people that we come from that makes them know whatever this deficit of cash that they're going to get out of our behind. And that's what is actually holding up the money is us as the debt slaves. Is what we're going to put in for them. So they bring the drugs. And we sell the drugs because they commercialize it through the music and everything.
So in order for that to be true, money is just something invented to control us.
Yes.
All right. So say that's true. All right. If we want, say the Illuminati is dead tomorrow, all of these people who are controlling us, they're all dead tomorrow. Okay. You're put in charge to rebuild social constructs for people to live on. How do you do that without money?
Oh, you would have to have money.
So
I think that you would have to have money, but it can't be a greedy establishment that is trying to make it all about sex and drugs and murder and killing and complete total control.
Greed also has good parts to it, though. If I live off capitalism and I want to make some great medicine that will eventually, cure cancer, AIDS, addiction, whatever, I go and create that, and now I become a billionaire, trillionaire, whatever, because I was greedy, because I wanted that money. I was also able to go and help a lot of people at the same time. And if you turn around and also push back against medicine costing so much, you're also pushing against all of the things that actually ended up helping us because it cost so much.
Well, if I was the one that was put in the position to be able to try and turn all of this back around, just being me as the person that I am, thinking the ways that I do now, seeing that genetically modified foods are causing the cancers and all of these other diseases, and these is, I believe, man-made diseases, because I don't think that we was ever getting any of these sicknesses like we do now today, especially from some of the people that I've talked to older. Like you will ask them, people that are be in their 60s or something like that, or 70s, and they're like, cancer was nothing like this when I was a teenager. And I know it wasn't. And if you go and you look at certain statistics about how much this has increased since 1980s or right before that, right before like when the Georgia Guidestones was set into the Georgia, where it's at now, that is a part of supposedly this plan of the New World Order that has the new 10 commandments in all different languages on it. And at the very top of it, it says maintain humanity at 500 million, written in stone, for all language, all people, all ethnicity.
Hold on. What does that mean? Maintain humanity by 500,000.
Maintain humanity at 500 million is at the very top of these stones.
Oh, you mean like at population wise?
Yes.
Okay.
Because it would be so much easier for whoever these elite people, especially if there's only a few 100,000 of them, to be able to maintain a certain amount of people instead of to try and keep everyone under control the ways they are, especially with the way technology has grown, the ways that people are starting to get upset about the inequality of the pushing out of the money. If you've ever looked into the inequality of the money, even when you look into the inequality of the money, and I guess the top 5 or 20% or something, however they put it out, which I believe we all call them the 1%, when you see the stats on even the people that are supposed to be rich and famous, they're barely on the inequality scale. When you see the people that are us, just regular people, anyone that even thinks you're doing good, you're not on that scale. But when it gets up to these people, they go completely skyrocketed off of, and they need a whole nother section for them off the scale. And it's not because of love. It's not because of caring about having the people here. We're $72 trillion in debt right now, is what they say. And not just a few years ago, it was 20-something trillion dollars in debt. So when they're teaching us the cartoons and stuff and TV about money, and if you don't got the money, and then they're making us believe that we owe China this money, and so we're in debt, so someone's going to come and do something to us possibly. It's not going to be done to them because they're all eating together. This is a part of the big show for everyone to believe we have to be the ones that are in fear for us and our stuff and our goods when we really actually don't own nothing at all. The United States of America is a corporation since the Act of 1871. And so with it being a corporation, and if you go and you look at all of the countries that have been invaded, 200 countries have been invaded, And what they do is they turn it into their own part of their corporation so that they can feed off of all of these other people until they can get this one world government, one world court. It says right on there, one world, maintain humanity at 500 million. Need no petty officers, no petty laws, or no petty no judges. One world court. This stuff is crazy, man, and it all fits together too perfect for them to want to be putting this RFID chip in the people. And these people already being shown in Wisconsin, 50 of these people at a certain Microsoft company being chipped with the RFID chip. Thousands of people being chipped over there in Sweden, I think it is.
Yeah.
And then also now the United States of America, which is the biggest military corporation, biggest military funded than any place on this whole plan it. And
I see what you did there.
It's perfect, bro. And
okay.
It's all
okay. So we're in collusion with all of the other big countries at the same time, but the smaller countries are not in on the plan, right?
Oh, they're making them go in. Anyone and everyone. All flags are flying over there in Antarctica for a reason, and everything is secretive for a reason.
So we're going to war against these people, even though
population control.
Because for population control. Okay, so I'm a Christian, okay, and I understand that you're not a big fan, okay.
Oh, I love you regardless, brother.
I'm a big fan of Jesus's teachings. I'm a big fan of the way of life that he puts forward. The way that we can live together peacefully in communion. But everything outside of those teachings, I have to question all the time. Do I really believe this? Why would I believe this? What intentions might have been put behind this document if they were trying to convince me of it? Because I say all the time, like, people are like, look, man, the Bible tells you that others are going to come and lie to you about it. Right?
Yeah.
They're going to lie to you about it. They're going to tell you it's wrong. It tells you that already, so don't listen to them. And I say, if it wants me to be ignorant and believe nothing but what it's going to tell me, of course it's going to tell me everybody else is wrong and that I shouldn't listen to them. So I get that. I believe that completely. I question my own thoughts and ideology all the time. You question this all the time. Do you wake up and say, man, maybe everything's not as cynical as I believe it is. Maybe I connect dots that just happen to be there, but aren't necessarily real. Do you question that at all?
Nope.
No. That's kind of my point, though, is that we started off by saying, in order to challenge your own thoughts and really believe them, or in order to believe your own thoughts, you have to have them challenged. And so I understand you're saying, let's challenge everybody else's thoughts and make sure that their thoughts are real. And then you come back and say, their thoughts obviously aren't real. They're fake. We proved it. We found these things that they don't even realize. But if the same person came over and did that to you and started to try to connect dots to how you were kind of not even thinking outside of your own bubble, and they asked you and said, do you even question these thoughts? You would say, nope. I'm cool with just believing this just because.
Well, when you grow up in the ghettos like I did, and I grew up as a welfare kid, I seen all of this abuse. I seen the drug activities. I've seen poverty like crazy, man. And I've been in and out of so many different people's homes. I was in foster homes. We was on welfare. My mom was a dancer. She got with crazy hood guys that was alcoholics or drug addicts and stuff, and she was an alcoholic. And then I started watching all of my family around me and then friends around me, all the things that they went through. I chose the bad life, the bad path. I could see psychopaths. I could see psychopath if I wanted to be a psychopath. So I seen certain people wanting to take over certain hoods with the drug game. So then I watched all of this with the criminal activities. I've watched all of these things happen. And for all of this stuff to be happening the ways that it's happening, and then now knowing, especially about the technology and them being controlling all of the technology and them being the ones that have been bringing the drugs and stuff to the other countries and everything and flooding this, and the government being connected with the drug activities and all of these things that are being shown to us. How is it not what's going on? Because they're making money hand over fist from both sides. And also not only about the money, because it really doesn't matter about the money. It's about destroying a population and getting rid of a certain amount. And then also not only doing that while it's happening, indoctrinating everyone to be these sex slaves. Because if you don't pay attention right now, they're indoctrinating young boys to want to be girls and young girls to want to be boys, so they can make a more weaker and docile mass, more easily controllable. And then when you see that the money is printed out of thin air and who's taking over this stuff, then you find out about these satanic rituals, and then you find out about 4,200 plus different religious beliefs. Then you start to think about how the construct of this puzzle would really be put together, and what would a psychopathic person want to do, because it's always about power. So when it's about power, you know that someone, whoever's got the most power, is wanting to take all the power from everyone else and keep the power for himself. And if it's being handed down from generation to generation for whoever it is, and you're teaching and training your son and your family members and everyone, this is the plan, what we're planning on doing to take over the world, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to hand it down, and you guys need to tweak it every fucking century, or every so often you have to tweak it so that we can make sure that this is what's going to happen, so that we make sure that we are the survivors. It's perfect, man.
I just feel like there are, if you don't have an ability to be proven wrong, or even have
I'm down with that. I'm down. If I wish somebody would prove it wrong. Okay. I dug into this 14 to 20 hours a day for 2 years, pretty much. And you can tell what's real when it's right in your face, when you've lived it your whole life. I can see the breakdown of the family function of the home through the women's rights movement. I've seen it. I can see the secret meeting that changed rap and a future generation of youth to fill up private prisons through gangster rap music. I can see it. I can see the control.
You and me probably have a lot of the same first thoughts, right? So we hear women are having abortions, at high rates, and there's this genocide going on. Your thought is immediately, there's something behind that is brainwashing them and starting and actually trying to control them in order for them to do this. My first thought is, man, religion and God are disappearing in this country. Community is disappearing in this country, and therefore morals are disappearing in this country to where they don't even know what's right and what's wrong anymore.
It's all part of the plan.
Right, but those are two completely different spots where we each end up. Where yours is, it's about money, and mine is, it's about some kind of
population. It's about population. It's about population. Controlling the population.
But again, that's too. I don't ever look at it and think this is population control. Like we both see the same thing and think it's wrong. And I think that that's pretty easy when people say, "Oh, there's this natural instinct to tell that's right and this is wrong." And so we can both see something and say it's wrong. It's
Yeah.
just the reasoning behind why it's wrong is going to be completely different from my side to your side.
Yeah. And I think that that's something else too, because when you hear, it's something, the ways that these people are able to even write the words and write the stories the ways that they do, because you'll hear somebody talking about how someone will read a Bible and another person will get a complete different outlook on the same stuff in this book than what someone else will. I think that they figured out a way to do that in everything in our lives. Because if you look into the English language, etymology, which it is spells and witchcraft, that's why they call spelling, spelling. And that's why they call cursive, cursive, because there's curses and there's spells that we're putting on each other through the English language that is one of the youngest languages out here. And you can look into this stuff just like and if you start thinking about some of the words that we're being told, control, con. So those two words right there, con, eyes and ears, control. And then the Latin definition of government is control mind, if you look this up. And then Babylon, baby, lawn, a bunch of babies babbling about a bunch of nothing in Babylon. You know, laying on the lawn, laying on the land. And they say that we are dead men at sea at, what do they call it? Maritime law. Everything is constructed for certain legalese that is making us have to do certain things because of someone that constructed this and made the English language or made numbers or taught us, because we didn't teach ourselves language. We didn't teach ourselves numbers. Someone above us had to be able to figure out all these things to be able to keep control over us. And they're teaching us in their schools whatever they need to teach us in their schools. They're teaching us, and the very first education had to be religion, because whatever, and then why wasn't religion only one religion over the whole world with one God of whatever? And why was there so many different religions that have been turned into so many stories by the kings or the queens of their areas, to now we're in this part of time and day and age right now today to where there's so many different religious stories about certain things. But yes, there's going to have the same types of moral values and the things that same things about a certain natural law stuff. But if you put all of these other people in a room together with the main top 20-something religions, which one of their God is going to be the one that's real, and which one of them is going to tell you, you better believe that this is the real one?
All of them, though, and that actually only explains further my questioning of what you're talking about. The rhetoric that you use is you and me are going to believe the same thing. We are both, technically, in this analogy, we both believe, or this metaphor, we both believe that there's a God.
Yes.
We just have different gods in this case. And so if I believe...
Well, I don't even know if it's different.
Wrong, I believe abortion is wrong, but I believe that why people are aborting their children is for a totally different reason that you believe people are aborting their children. And I'm not
social engineering.
Social engineering, though, but that's to say that I am convinced of something that's not actually true. You have the truth because you've looked at it from the outside, whereas I believe I'm also looking at it from the outside, and we're still coming to two completely different theories about the conclusion.
What was your outside of looking into it, though?
But that I'm not one of the people who would abort my children. I'm not one of the people who would allow that. That's me on the outside.
Yes,
Them.
yes. You have certain moral values.
Right. And when I'm on the outside and I'm talking to those people about it, I am backing up what I believe with what I also to believe facts and even as a Christian, I believe that Christians somewhat have a moral high ground because of the morals that they hold to be true.
Okay, so check this out. So now if you have a baby or you got someone pregnant and it's a woman or whatever, and she's choosing that she wants to have this abortion, are you going to be able to stop her?
I actually, I don't know if this answers your question very well, but I told my last girlfriend that if I was a guy who ever got a girl pregnant and she told me she was going to have an abortion and kill my child, I would kidnap her, I would hide her for 9 months until that baby was born, and then she could no longer legally kill it, whether I kidnapped her or not, and then maybe I'd go to prison for the rest of my life. That would, in my eyes, my sacrifice going to prison would be perfectly just in the end because I saved somebody's life. So,
and it would also be perfectly just for the justice system because they would still be getting their money out of you or their worth out of you, and then they would also have a new baby that possibly would grow up with not a really good father. So it doesn't matter to them. So either way, we're fucked. So you're doing something regardless that is going to be against whatever their rules and regulations that are made, that are being pushed by this women's rights and feminist movement that is telling these women, it's my body, I can do what I want with it. But us men don't have a choice of anything, especially child support, being able to really actually see or be there for our children if we are good fathers, and you will be lied about and shamed. The shaming of men, you can see it everywhere. You can see it in movies, cartoons. You can see it on the commercials, the ways that they make the men look stupid and goofy and ignorant. This is all, there's so many things.
You can listen to all of those things and for a moment have some empathy for why even me, somebody who is very conservative, Republican, right-wing, Christian, all of those things, even I can still empathize and understand how they can believe that and how they came to that conclusion through a different thought process, and even more likely through different things as they grew up in their life that may really affect them and how they end up leaning one way or the other. And it's the same for you, which is, again, the entire idea behind the podcast is that lots of things will change your ideology and sway you one way or the other, whether it's somebody who just talked to you, something traumatic you went through as a child, all of those things. I can still listen to those people, though, and understand how they came to that conclusion outside of, or because like progressives, okay? Progressives, when it comes to politics, I truly believe that their intentions are good. I really do. I think that those people really want equality and all of these different things that they believe will help people as a nation, and they want to do it through government. And I can understand that, and I think that it is that their intentions are very good. I think that what they are looking for, though, and the way that they go about it has other things that it'll affect in the end that will actually be even worse than it was before they started. And so it's still the brainwashing part is still an issue for me because I can actually understand those thought processes. I could come to them myself.
Well, I mean, if you have complete and total control over the television set and all of the media and everything from the very beginning, before we was even born, you can get all of these thought processes pushed into people for generations to where it's going to be working exactly the ways it needs to.
Right, but even outside of that, I can understand just on an emotional level or just on a natural level outside of television or anything else.
That you can understand where these women are coming up with the thoughts of wanting to go ahead and have the abortion.
Yes, I can understand where if they would say, "Hey, look, I am taught that this isn't
So could I,
a
definitely.
this isn't even a child. This isn't," and on top of that, the motivation to believe that is very high. If I don't want to be a parent right now, if I truly believe that having this child is going to ruin my future and ruin the rest of my life, then it really makes sense for me to want to believe this. And then once I start buying into the idea that it's not even a kid, it's just a group of cells, it's not a human, that
And then also plus depending on the situation of whoever the father is, where the position of the finances is in the relationship, the worries about maybe not being able to take care of a child or bring a child into this world or whatever, they could think like this very easily. However old they are, you know, and it wouldn't be hard for. And I've been in those positions before when I was younger, and like. And even now, right now, like, I wouldn't want to bring a child into this world because what I see it getting ready to turn into. So I wouldn't want to put that child through that hell. I wouldn't want.
They might say the same thing as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we can understand those things from an emotional standpoint. But at the same time, we have to look a little bit closer and say, yeah, but even if it is just a group of cells, like you call it, you can't disregard that that is going to become a human being. That is a very slippery slope. That's a huge jump to say that even though it's not a human being yet, I can now do whatever the hell I want to.
Well, I think it's crazy. I think it's crazy the ways that they're talking about being able to abort these babies at a very short period of time now. Like, that's just sick to me. You know, I think that
after being born.
Yeah, I think that if it's not formed, I don't see, you know, if people are making decisions and choices on whatever when it's not formed, I don't see the big deal. I really don't, because I wouldn't want to have a child in this world right now. Honestly, I've got 2 kids right now that I went through a crazy situation with both of my babies' mothers because the ways that these women are being indoctrinated to get with the bad boy, which I was the bad boy. And then me try and change my whole life around and be the good dad and the worker, because I didn't want to be a piece of shit father like what I seen and everyone else around me doing whatever. And I was proud to have a child and wanted to show out and be a different man than what I've ever seen around me, and never want my child to be in a bad position like I was. So I tried to work regular jobs and stuff like that and be the good guy. And I never had no one teaching me anything good because I grew up, like I said, with different stepfathers that was drug addicts or alcoholics and criminals. And me and my brothers, we all seen the same things, and all my friends, we seen the same things. So when you grow up and you see these things, and you see your mother being beat on, you see your brothers being beat on, you see friends of yours going through the exact same things and not having no kind of stable environment and no kind of mentors. I never wanted to be that type of person to be able to put my child in this position, but then not having a certain type of financial stability too, and then not having the money as a young child. I was 18 years old, you know, when my daughter was born, and the girl that I was with, she was 21 years old, and she was a beautiful woman. And so she being indoctrinated by this music and society and telling them to go and get with the man with the money or whatever, I didn't have a chance to already have this money and stuff. I was trying to work at a regular warehouse job and just be a good dad and not go out and do the criminal activities that I used to do before. And then it comes into the indoctrination of, you don't have enough time for me. You don't have enough money for me, which a lot, and it's the same thing with everyone else. So
But you
now
can't call it indoctrination because, again, you, if you think about it, can still empathize with that thought process. Even though you disagree with it in the end, it doesn't make it indoctrination in the end. It just means you come to a different conclusion than they do, and you might be more educated on the situation, and you might have a better insight to it and be right. But just because somebody is wrong doesn't mean that they have now been indoctrinated or brainwashed to come to a different conclusion.
Do you think that TV is just for entertainment?
No, there's definitely political agendas out there. But for you to then act as if, even for people having abortions, if I turn around and start saying that they're all brainwashed by the media, CNN and MSNBC and all of that, I'm immediately taking the personal responsibility out of it for that person. And personal responsibility is literally everything. I'm sure you would agree, because you have an outlook on things that is different than what you believe the masses believe. And so the personal responsibility in that has to be important. What you do is takes the personal responsibility away from them and says, you're not actually responsible for this because you've been brainwashed and brought up to believe it from a young age, to where you don't actually have the choice. You are actually a slave and do not even have the options that everybody else has, or that you should have. Sorry.
So if you have to raise people through centuries on top of centuries to be able to have reasons to combat the information, to keep being able to put the blame on ourselves and each other, are you going to make sure that you're indoctrinating the same thing? Just like when you said in the Bible and in the book, where it tells you not to believe anything that these other people are going to be telling you about what's going on in the world?
It depends. Let's define indoctrinating real quick. Is there a difference between indoctrinating and brainwashing?
Brainwashing is the same thing. Indoctrination, brainwashing, it's all the same thing. It's all something that you're making sure that the people believe so that they can keep on fighting with each other about what they cannot believe. So when you tell somebody that you're just trying to not take the blame for your role in life, because that's what a lot of people have tried to tell me, like, well, you have to accept blame for your situations in your life. Well, I understand that, and I have done that, and that's exactly why I'm trying to do what I'm doing right now, is because I accept what I have done in my life, but I don't accept how it happened and where it comes from. I don't like that this constructed planet has put certain people that will never be able to be in a better position in the positions that I had to be in, because they don't give us the chance to be able to have anything better, because they would rather make more problems and more bad situations for us so that we can kill, rob, steal, and hate each other, to be able to get rid of each other a lot easier.
All right, so real quick, just for the sake of this podcast, so that we have clarity going forward, let's change the definition from indoctrinating and brainwash, and say brainwashing is where you have absolutely no other options. You are put in a room where this is taught to you the entire time, and there are no other outside influences that you can listen to. And that indoctrinating is where I'm teaching you something from an authority, from a spot of authority, and you have a reason to listen to me. And therefore, I am teaching you these things, even though you may go home to different people at the end of the day who tell you something completely different. Okay? So just for the sake of this conversation, I would say, and if they are being indoctrinated, there are still people out there who are going to tell them otherwise. And I feel I'm one of those people, as far as it goes, from the left and things that you talk about with abortion, with socialism, with the media, but those are just biases in the end, and they're not actually brainwashing, because even if you have CNN on one side, you still also have Fox News on the other side who's going to completely disagree with this side and tell you something exact opposite. They're going to say the exact opposite over here. So there's always challenging ideas on both sides to really find the truth in the end. And a lot of these things are from people who do come from poverty and things like that, and do rise to power over time only because they did work hard and they did save their money and they
As
in
did, who?
I can't remember. There's lots of people though. Like even my dad. Okay, so my dad, his mom had put like a bunch of stocks and bonds and stuff into money through some salesman who would just come by and convince her to do it, and she did it and she put it in, totally forgot about it. She dies. All of a sudden, this money is flowing into my dad's hands, and he's able to do all of these other things, millions of dollars that he's able to, that he has at his hands now, that he can go and do whatever he wants with now. And he could use it for influence. He could use it to make more money. He could use it to help the needy. He can do whatever he wants with that money. And those families that, like, I think there's like a line where, I think it's Trump's great grandfather who had actually started the whatever business it was that made them all of that money, and then went down the line to Trump eventually, where now he's rich also. But to, I guess that would also play into your argument because Trump's now the president of the United States. So not a, my point is that every single time, if I do come back with something that kind of puts your thoughts into question, the fact that everything is corrupt already means that no matter what I say, it doesn't matter because there is some corrupt reason for that anyways.
Exactly right.
But if that's not true, just the inkling, just the chance that that is not true means that somehow that you have gone through all of these processes and thought processes where you come to this conclusion where no matter what, you stand from a point where you could never be wrong, ever, because everything is corrupt. So whatever your agenda is, whatever thoughts you want to push,
their agenda.
But I'm saying your agenda, as far as them being corrupt and them being wrong and all of those things, that your thought process and your agenda could never be wrong, because no matter what is brought to the table, that is also corrupt and that is also wrong.
Where would it all start from? Where would all the control and all of this be able to come from? Like, where would it begin? What would be the main attraction?
Influence.
Money.
But money gains influence and influence gains money. It goes both ways. I can start a podcast like this and have good ideas and get good things out there and start making money off of it all by myself without anybody else. And
so check this out. So now when you start making a bunch of money with whatever it is that you're doing, and you have somebody come to you and tell you that they need you to put out this certain information or whatever, you start slowly putting out certain information that they're giving you scripts to put out.
Okay.
You feel comfortable about whatever it is that they're telling you you need to be putting out because you've already been fed whatever it was that needed to be fed from either NBC, Fox, whatever it is, all these people that have already obviously been told to us that these people have been lying to us in the news and everything else. But we can still catch a hold of certain things that makes us have these beliefs that we need to have because our family will agree with it. Our friends will agree with it. Everyone else has already been combed a certain way to be able to believe these certain things. So now you feel like you're getting your hands in something and you're going to start making some money from something. So now this goes on for about a year or 2 years, and now they've given you more and more things that you need to start putting this information out. You're blowing up, you're getting big, you're getting a lot of money or whatever, and they hit you with something like you don't want to really do because it goes against your values. They're not going to give you your money. You're already accustomed to this certain kind of lifestyle. You're not going to be able to pay your bills. You're not going to be able to take care of your children a certain way. You're not going to be able to do this. Your whole show is threatened to be able to get shut completely off if you don't do what you're told. Same thing that's happening with everyone in a certain position to be able to do anything that is brainwashing us.
But again, I understand how you can come to these conclusions.
There's people that speak about this stuff.
Yeah, see it like this, okay? Say you have a group of friends though, and you guys all are speaking the truth, right? And the truth about corruption and these back alley power archetypes and all of these other things that you believe are influencing the world and kind of taking over, okay? And instead, I say, so you guys all start your podcast. You got like 5 or 6 different ones, and you're all, doing your thing, and you get lots of viewers. And I go and look and say, you know what? Those guys were funded by this one guy. And this one guy has this, doesn't like CNN. And now CNN is, funded by this guy who's actually funded by that guy. And I start to do the same exact thing to you that you tend to do to others. If you try to come back and say, no, look, I'm not that person. I'm not doing those things. Nothing you can say could actually redeem anything that I've already put out there, because I believe everything is corrupt anyways, and nothing that you tell me can stop that from being true. Because regardless of what you tell me, I'm going to find one way or another to connect those dots. And so personally that that's not true. Personally you have your own thoughts and you have your own agenda that is outside of the powerful people. But either way, I have already put that label on you. I've already connected the dots, and there is no way around this anymore. You see where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
That there are I think that in a complicated world like what we live in today, there will always be ways to connect dots to things that aren't really there. It's just possible. It's easy. Like there's lots of conspiracy videos put out there about NASA, right? And how they Photoshop their stuff and how the Earth isn't really round, and you can prove that it was Photoshopped. And they'll come back and be like, yeah, we did Photoshop part of it, because in that piece, we were actually explaining something that wasn't in the picture. And so we added it to the picture to make it more relevant and give you a visual aspect of what we're trying to talk about. And you guys say, no, that can't be the answer, because you're trying to convince everybody that the Earth is round. And that's the only reason that you put a round Earth on there anyways. It's the only explanation. And they're like, but what about the explanation I just gave you? Why isn't that good enough?
Well, the money. If you start at the money and the education system and the ways that education hasn't changed for like 100 years, something like that's so important, I think. Lies about the money and the ways that the Federal Reserve was started, that everything else that comes together when you start putting this puzzle together about the chemtrails being sprayed in the air with aluminum oxides, mercury, and barium, and they're doing tests and stuff with the microfibers and the nanotechnology that is in this air now as well, that is also supposed to be attached and connected with this new 5G technology. And then all of the movies that they put out, that they're putting out, like this Bird Box, to put fear into us about what we're supposed to be getting ready to see that is possibly going to happen because of the microwaves that are in this 5G technology. You start to put all this stuff together and look into the direct energy weapons and start looking at California, how the trees was burning from the inside because of the absorb of the aluminum oxides and the barium, whatever is supposed to be a super inflammatory element, that when it goes up inside this tree, that's why it's burning from the inside. I don't know if you've ever seen any of those pictures of it, but you start putting all these pieces together about the sacrificing of these children and the drinking of the blood that is adrenochrome and just all of this crazy stuff that seems like it couldn't be real. But then there's a lot of people that are sitting in buildings and government buildings that are speaking about this stuff, that are like CIA, ex-CIA, and certain things. And you start digging deep enough and finding all of these things out, you start to see and realize how corrupt this really is, and that it is being controlled and driven by the money. And then you start to see all of these countries and places that have been taken over, and in the ways that they're poisoning us with the drugs and stuff, you start to see that the monopoly board that we used to play back in the day is actually being used right now in real life in our faces by these people that have played with the monopoly money to make us believe that it is real, to be able to take us over. And they have the stronghold over whether you are or are not going to do what you're told, because when you live in a certain type of lifestyle, you want to keep living that lifestyle. And if you can't fend for your families and feed your families and do whatever because of the career choice or the job choice that you chose, whether it was military or doctor or lawyer or whatever it is that you're used to in your family, and if you're in a certain type of a cult that you've been raised and brought up in, and now you've made choices and decisions, when you start looking into these occults and satanic stuff and this, what is it, scientism, I think it is one of these things. Is that what Scientology and stuff like that? You start to see that the people that are really controlling what they have made are really taking this world over. It's not hard to see it if you do the research on it, and that's why it's so hard to shut up about it when you do learn this stuff. And then when you also look around and you see everyone that wants you to shut up about it, it's so easy to see why, and especially the people that have made sure that they want to keep you shut up about it, because they got to make you look crazy. They got to make you look crazy so that you don't expose what they're doing. So it's perfect, man. There's no way, like, when you dig deep enough for you to be able to see it, if you do look, I'll send you some stuff, and it's going to blow your mind.
It is true. If I'm looking for some sort of legitimacy with what you're saying and what you believe, I'm going to look for the most educated, the most well-spoken person that I can find that is going to say the same things as you. And then and it's, just the problem again, though, is that as soon as I find this person and I say anything wrong with them, like I don't believe they're all that educated, or obviously this, their videos are very poorly done or something like that, it's all going to come right back to, oh, well, they didn't have enough money, man. They didn't have the funding. Nobody will let them get this done. And, they're being stopped at every corner and every angle. And
well, what it is I'd rather listen to someone that's not very educated, because they haven't been educated and indoctrinated enough to be able to see only the one way that was told this is what we're supposed to think and how we're supposed to think. That's how you don't get that programmed, is if you're not paying attention to everything that you're supposed to pay attention to be able to live by the ruling class's rules and have this mindset and these thoughts of how we are getting where we're getting and what we're supposed to do to get there. Because if you listen only to that stuff, then you're only going to be programmed to be able to give the excuses that these people are just trying to give excuses to not try and succeed.
But it's not always disproving just because you find a problem with it.
No, I know what you mean, but when you put it all together and you really start to dig, instead of trying to worry about surviving in life and working at your job and taking care of your family and doing all the things that makes you feel comfortable and happy about living, instead of what a lot of people would say, I'm not going to let that consume me. Well, you don't understand that you're actually being consumed. And the only reason that you're actually being consumed is because you've never gave yourself time out to be able to even look the other way, because you have to be consumed. So as long as they consume you, you will be consumed.
I like that, consumed, because they're consumers, right?
And we are the consumers, but they're consuming us. So if they can consume our time, whether it's the television, whether it's our education, whether it's our religious beliefs, whether it's our relationship, whether it's our job, our career, whatever it is, we're being consumed of all of our time in a 24-hour day, which would be 8 hours in the education system, 8 hours of sleeping most of the time. So there's 16 hours gone. So now you have 8 hours left out of a 24-hour day or whatever, right? And now, what are you going to spend your 8 hours left to do? Only things that you've been educated or indoctrinated or brainwashed into believing that you are living at least some of your free life, so that you never look the other direction, so that you can be consumed.
Hey, are people inherently good or inherently bad? Inherently both?
I believe that people are born good. I believe people are born good, and whatever their situation is, and the atmosphere and the environment that they're in ends up messing with them and makes them end up having to make the choices that they do and being pushed into these bad situations.
So then even the people who are controlling, are at the very, very top, those people aren't necessarily bad people. They've just been kind of led astray or led into this situation.
I do believe that, yes.
That's not the most cynical way of looking at it, I guess. It's the problem still, though, is something as simple as is if I still believe if all of this was true, they wouldn't even let you talk, right? If somebody dies tomorrow that you know that's saying this stuff, your first thought is they got him, right?
Well, when I first started doing this, I tried to go to YouTube to start speaking about whatever. I never knew about the censorship that these people had had. I didn't know that they controlled all these networks. I didn't know that it was a certain amount of families that controlled everything that we see and all the tech. I didn't understand how it all worked at all. I just was seeing it. I was upset because of the things that I've seen happen with friends and family and children and the world and the ways that it really is, and my brother dying, because that's actually what made me start to look into these things. Was my brother, he passed away because he wanted to go and get drugs, and I believe that the hospital killed him. So I really started to think a lot more about certain things because of my brother passing away, because that was a very serious tragedy in my life and a serious loss of someone that I was so close to, that I cared so much about, that made me want to look into these things and start to figure out where the drugs was coming from. So then I started to figure that stuff out, and I started to dig deeper and deeper. I started to dig about the relationships and why women are acting the ways that they are, and the ways that I've seen them leaving good men, and the ways that I've seen them screw someone around for the child support for their children, and then the child grow up without the real father and then go through all this abuse, just all of these things. And man, it just put me down this path that I could not stop doing this, man. I couldn't stop looking. I had to keep looking. I had to keep digging. In the first 40 days first 4 months, the first 4 months, I found this video. It was Illuminati leaked training video. They say that it was made by some type of a college student that put it out, and it just made too much sense to me. Me being in the neighborhood and in the areas that I grew up in, and everyone thinking the ways that you're thinking about how to take over your area. This video made too much sense to me about how they would be taking over these areas. But they have to put the truth right in our faces. There's some kind of rules about this, because they say that we are supposed to have some type of a, what do they call that in the Bible? We have free will. We're supposed to have free will. We think we have free will, but we really don't even have free will. We're being introduced certain things that makes us feel these certain feelings no matter what. So if you're in the Bible and this Bible tells you certain things about how you're supposed to be so good and all the things that you're supposed to do to be good, but also in this Bible, doesn't it say something about how you can have sex with your own daughter, or how you can trade off your own daughter to someone or something like that? Like you can trade your own daughter to people for, and it doesn't it say stuff in there about beating the baby against a stone or something like that? Beating the child against a stone or something?
I don't know. Actually, let's look it up so we can get into
and doesn't it say certain things about how it's okay for slavery? Doesn't it say that you a servant to his master, his or her master?
What it does say is that masters should be kind to their slaves, and slaves should be, I think it says, obedient, which I don't necessarily disagree with that. It's not saying don't. It's
do you
not
think
saying
God was a slave, or whoever they say got it? Do you think God was a slave?
No.
Do you think God would want to be a slave?
No, it's not saying be a slave. It's not saying that at all. It's not saying, hey, be a slave, be content with being a slave. It is saying, though, is that if you, again, I believe that lots of things that are in the Bible are actually ways for us to live better together, right? Something as simple as just saying that slaves should listen to their masters. If you're a slave and your friend is a slave too, and he's over there, is, you know, if he pushes back, he might get hurt, right? So you're probably going to go and tell him the same thing. Be like, bro, stop doing that. You know this is going to hurt you, and it hurts me to watch you do that, man.
So
stop
here we go,
it.
right here. Check this out. Leviticus 25:44, 446 maybe? Yeah, 46. Your male and female slaves are to come from the nations around you. From them you may buy slaves. You may also buy some of the temporary residents living among you and members of their clans born in your country, and they will become your property. You can will them to your children and inherit property, and can make them slaves for life.
What is this talking about? I'm not.
This is this most ridiculous and disgusting evil Bible verses.
All right, so let's.
And this is in Leviticus, Leviticus 25:44.
All right, so this is the one you were talking about. It's Exodus 21:7-11.
No, this is Leviticus.
No, this is the other one. Okay.
Oh, okay.
I already had it pulled. So
okay,
says,
good job.
When he sells his daughter as a slave, she will not be freed at the end of 6 years as the men are. If she does not satisfy her owner, he must allow her to be bought back again. She is not allowed to sell her to foreigners, since he is the one who broke the contract with her. But if the slave's owner arranges for her to marry his son, he may no longer treat her as a slave, but as a daughter. If a man who has married a slave wife takes another wife for himself, he must not neglect the rights of the first wife to food, clothing, and sexual intimacy. If he fails in any of these three obligations, she may leave as a free woman without making any payment. Huh. All right. What was the first one?
The first one, the one that I had said, Leviticus 25:44.
So that one says, however, you may purchase male and female slaves from among the nations around you. All right. So have you actually looked up a Christian or theological reasoning for this?
No, but
I don't know that there is. I don't know that there is one. I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, and, you know, I mean, just listening to it, it just sounds terrible to me anyways.
I don't know. Well, what I'm saying is that I don't know that this isn't just explaining what current laws are. It's to while I'm reading it, it's just in the context of what they've put up. It's not. I don't know why they're in this conversation. I don't know why they're even exploring this part without any sort of context. So
yeah, okay. So here's some more. I've got plenty of. I got this other phone that I remember that I went ahead and I took these screenshots a while ago, and I'm glad I just had it sitting here. Genesis 19:8.
Where did it go? Did I lose it?
You're at 19:1, probably 19:8.
Yeah, that was actually on the last page I was just looking at. Look, I have 2 daughters who have never slept with a man. Let me bring them out to you, and you can do what you like with them. But don't do anything to these men, for they have come under the protection of my roof. Okay, again, I'm not going to sit here and try to explain something that I don't know.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm also looking at this out of context. If I tell you a story, or you go read a book that I wrote, and in that book I tell a story of a man who sold his daughter to slaves, you cannot turn around and try to explain that now I'm in favor of men selling their daughters to slaves.
Well, check this one out. Let's just do this one last one right here. And if anyone ever wants to look into any of this any further later on, it's called The Most Ridiculous and Disgusting Evil Bible Verses. But this is Deuteronomy. Is that how you pronounce that? Deuteronomy.
Deuteronomy.
Okay. 22:28-29.
All right, real quick. This says it has an explanation, so let me just look at it. That's the last one we looked at. Well, maybe that's the wrong one. It wasn't was it Genesis 19:1 or 19:8 that
No,
I
it
was
was
on?
19:8.
Okay. This
I'm pretty
says,
sure.
"Behold, now I have two daughters which have not known men. I thought some think they were espoused to men, but had not yet cohabitated with them. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes." So let's see. I thought this had an explanation in here.
Yeah.
It said it did. Or some. Okay, here we go. Bible ref. 19:8. The text does not explicitly say if Lot knows that the two men he is protecting are actually angels in human disguise. Based on his protective treatment of them, it's safe to assume Lot does not yet realize he is sheltering creatures who fear no human being. On the other hand, if Lot does think these are holy visitors sent from God, it might help us to comprehend the baffling suggestion he makes in this verse. So he's testing these people to see if they're angels and wants to see if they sleep with his daughters. In that one. What was the other one? Deuteronomy?
Yeah. 22:28. If a man happens to meet a virgin who is not pledged to be married and rapes her, and they are discovered, he shall pay the girl's father 50 shekels of silver. He must marry the girl, for he has violated her.
See, these all say commentaries on them, but I don't actually see the commentary. It says these are like regulations might be needful, then yet it, no, that's not it. The fine was to be paid to the father because the slander was against him principally as the head of the wife's family. If the damsel were an orphan, the fine reverted to herself. The fact that the penalties attached to bearing false witness against the wife are fixed and comparatively light indicates the low estimation and position of the woman at the time. So those are things having to do with law on where they lived.
Yeah, Genesis 19:36. So both of Lot's daughters became pregnant by their father.
Oh, dude, there's all sorts of stuff like that in the Bible. Just because they talk about it doesn't mean that they're saying it's a good thing. They also
Yeah,
talk about you shouldn't drink until you're drunk, but they talk about Noah just getting plastered on a daily basis after he realizes that he just had a part in wiping out the entire world.
yeah. Well, there's a lot of things. These are just things that it says the most ridiculous and disgusting, evil Bible verses. Jeremiah 19:19. I will make them eat the flesh of their sons and daughters. I don't know. It's just there's a lot of stuff that's mixed in there that could be bad and good, and it just seems like something just like everything in the TV and on the movies and everything to be able to just keep us so confused.
Well, again, lots of these are stories, and when they tell the entire story, it in the end, all there is some sort of moral of the story that you're supposed to learn and understand in the end. And even though there's messed up stuff in the story, doesn't
Yeah,
necessarily mean that they're advocating for those things. It just means it happens to be part of the story, right? They're not, at no point are they ever trying to say, hey, look, anybody except for Jesus is perfect. Like they never say that anywhere in the Bible. There is nobody that is perfect. There's nobody that's without sin. And so all of the stories that they tell that may have a good moral of the story at the end, it's still also means that the people who are in those stories are going to have flaws and they're going to do messed up stuff all the time. I'm not defending things that I have not looked up yet or that we have not addressed specifically on here. What I am saying, though, is that as far as I've seen and when I've gone through these things with other people that they've pulled up, every single one of them had happened to have an explanation, or it wasn't something that they were advocating for or condemning either. They were just saying this is part of the story.
Yeah, well, I don't know why they would even talk about and act like slavery was anything good or act like having any, I don't know. It's just, it sounds like it's telling people to be servants to masters. And so it's going to benefit someone, because also when I think about it, I don't think that God is going to come down and hand out ink and books and everything to everyone, and if he did, why didn't he hand it out to the whole world and everyone is on the same path and everyone, it all just doesn't really make.
Because to believe that everybody is worthy is ridiculous, right? We're not all the same. We're not all equal. And we're in to think that God is just going to say, hey, everybody's good enough to write a passage in my book would be conflation.
No, I think that you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I think that whoever is being told whatever it is, someone's benefiting from these ink books. Someone is getting something from these books out of control. They're being able to keep control over a certain amount of people, I believe, because
the Bible does advocate, though, free will, and it does condemn tyranny. And so to try to say that it's pushing you to just listen to anybody and everybody from one verse about listening to your...
It's not telling you to listen to everybody and anybody. It's telling you, if you don't do this and you do this, you're going to hell and you will be judged. So there's so many different things that you better not do, and you better stay focused in your book or you're going to hell.
Okay, that may be true in some religions. In Christianity, let me go ahead and explain this to you, because I had this conversation just the other day. Okay, when somebody asked, they said, I'm struggling. I'm just always wondering why we're here. What is life? Like, what is all of this, right? And so I said, I was like, look, I grew up for the longest time wondering the same thing. I am naturally rebellious. And when I grew up with my father as a pastor, it seemed wrong that was all that I was taught growing up. And so, again, I think you have to challenge your ideas and challenge your principles in order to believe that they are real. So I rebelled hardcore, and I went out and just believed there was nothing for the longest time. That's a very convenient belief, right? That I can do whatever I want, and it doesn't really have much of an effect outside of my own life. Pretty quickly, though, I started to think, like, hold on. All of this didn't just end up here, right? Like, this didn't just appear here. Somebody had to put it here. Someone did. And so I started to wonder, like, why did they put it here? If they put it here and it was someone who put it here, then why don't they reveal themselves to us? That would be so convenient if they did. So there has to be a reason they don't reveal themselves to us. The best answer I could come up with is, it's a test. It has to be a test. Life in itself is a test. You have to pass this test. And if so, what is the reward for passing this test, right? If you pass the test, what do you get in the end? Okay. Mm-hmm. So I start to look in religions, and I start to look at what is the test and what is the reward. And pretty quickly, like, the one that seemed to make the most sense to me was Christianity. And then I start going through denominations, right? Because some, like, even like there are lots of other religions that really have violent tendencies and things like that, whereas Jesus himself was very like opposed to those sorts of things, and really preached like peace and community and things like that. And so that's what I kind of grabbed onto. And so if it is so I'm looking at religions mostly because that's what the world has to offer as far as what we have as far as afterlife or who created us and things like that. So Christianity seemed to be the best one to me. And I'm looking at what the test is. And the test says, if you just believe that Jesus came down and died for our sins, just believe that with all of your heart, then you have passed the test. And if you believe that, it comes with other things. The Bible doesn't say that, but you immediately know, if I believe Jesus came down and selflessly gave his life for the rest of us, then I'm also going to believe in his teachings and want to live in that sort of way. I want to help people, and I want to be kind, and I don't want to lie, and I want to obey these laws and rules only because I believe in Jesus. It doesn't say, if you follow these rules, you now go to heaven. The one rule is believe in Jesus, right? That's it. That is the only rule. And if you are trying, just like me, anybody can seek, anybody can look around and see, hey, somebody put this here. Who did it? Anybody could come to the same conclusions I did pretty easily and find the same answers that I did. And if you don't look for those answers, and if you don't really think about it, and if you just say, it is what it is, I'm going to live my life, whatever, then there is a penalty for that. There is you do lose in the end. For us, life is just what it is. It's very simple, right? Water, the fish don't know they live in water because they're just always in water. It is what it is, their surrounding. Life is what it's just a very simple thing to us. Whereas if it wasn't here at all, how do you describe it? How do you explain that? And so the best way for me to explain it is a test. And you either fail or you pass, and you go to heaven or you go to hell. You have something like 70 to 80 to 90 years of a life expectancy to figure out this test, okay? You have that many years to figure it out and make one decision. You just make one decision, and you pass that test. Now, that is 80 to 90 years compared to eternity, right? Forever. You pass the test, you live forever in perfection. We are only put here for this one test. There is nothing else. Nothing else matters. We have to make our way while we're here. And whatever we buy into, we have to show that through our daily lives. If I don't buy into Jesus being our Lord and Savior, you're going to follow me around for a day or two and find it pretty evident in the way that I live my life, in the things that I do, and the things that I say. And if I do buy into it, you'll pretty quickly find that out too. And so it's obvious once you make that decision, how you live your life. I'm not going to go to hell. And it says very specifically in the Bible, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven through works alone. Works alone means things that you do. You can't just go and help the poor and never lie and do all of these great things without accepting Jesus into your heart, because that's not the test. These are the rules of the game. He created us. He made us. He decides the rules, and that's the end of it. There's no real arguing with that. If you create whatever it is you're creating, you decide the rules from there, and he did, and we have to play the game by his rules.
So do they say anything about the pyramids in the Bible?
No. I know that people believe that when the Jews were enslaved, that they may have been building pyramids, but I also know that scholars are now saying that they were actually around long before that, and they can't even figure out how they were built because they never had the technology back then to actually build them. So
And then there's nothing at all being spoke about in any of these religions about anything about the main thing that is on the money, that is the pyramids, that says on the money, and God we trust and stuff like that. You know, it's just, there's so many things that goes into all of this stuff that just makes me feel just we've got to question everything, you know. And
But hold on. What is that? What does the pyramids being mentioned in the Bible have to do with them being on the dollar bill?
it's the main control source. It's been here for a very long time. The pyramids are lined up strategically with certain stars and everything, and on a certain point in the world and on the planet. And these looked like they was some types of kings and queens or something of some sort that was obviously using slaves. And then the Bible says stuff in it about slavery and things like that. And the whole world's been built on slaves. So it just seems to me like it's
the whole world wasn't
slavery.
built on slaves. Like even America, people always want to say that America was built on slavery, but truly you had to be massively rich back then to own slaves. And you only really had slaves if you had a massive plantation. So how many people do you really think that every single person was owning these giant plantations and walking around with slaves all the time? Like it was only prominent in the South and on these giant plantations.
I think that the people that had the money was the ones that had the people to be their mob for them.
Some of them. Some.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was also lots of money in the North where nobody owned slaves.
And it wasn't even really money then. It was trade. It was cattle. It was alcohol. It was just anything that they could trade. Their trade values of clothes and things like that. I think that before it became something of trade, that everyone was just living off the land already as it was. And when you're born first onto this planet, wherever we did come from, I don't think that we was running after animals and attacking animals to kill them to eat. I think that we was really actually living off of the herbs, off of the ground. So when you start thinking about all of this stuff and you think about how,
but our body naturally process meat at a better rate, especially for protein and things like that, than we are able to process vegetables.
They're lying to us.
I mean, it seems evident when you look at somebody who's a vegan versus somebody who eats meats. They're normally very big and jacked dudes, and you rarely find somebody who is actually very big who says, I eat nothing but vegetables. I mean, vegetables these days are also genetically engineered.
Do you believe you have to be big to be healthy?
No, but I do believe that being big is, unless you're using supplements or something like that, that being big is an indicator of health.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people would like to think and say too, because it just seems to look like that. But if we think about food and energy the ways that we should, and if you've ever really ate and went on a certain type of fruits and vegetables diet, have you ever tried that?
I have. And
Did you feel so much?
Yes, and I understand that there are other chemicals that are put into the meats for preservation and things like that. I get it, and I'm not happy with it, but I also understand that it is just the way it is, and it doesn't necessarily hurt me in the end. And I don't think that I'm dumbed down by it. I don't think my brain is cloudy. I don't think that I have trouble thinking or processing, because I eat pretty much all meat, almost all fast food and things like that. Actually, right now I'm on a diet where I don't eat for 14 hours of every day. And so I get up, I eat breakfast, 10 hours later, I eat dinner and then I don't eat for the rest of the day. And I feel better now than I ever have in my entire life. And I can eat whatever I want in this diet. And I don't gain weight. And I've lost like 70 pounds since I started it. And I feel better. I feel clearer. I feel more energetic. I play more sports now, and I do all sorts of things that I wasn't able to do before because I had all that weight while eating all fast food. Now I can eat all the fast food and lose the weight and be energetic and feel good all at the same time. There are caveats to these things where it's not just one or the other. You can have both.
Oh, well, good job, man.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And I understand what you're talking about when you talk about drugs. I was a heroin addict for a long time. But I didn't become a heroin addict because I thought the rappers were cool. And and I've been to all the NA meetings and the AA meetings and rehabs and all that stuff. And I never hear anybody like, yeah, man, I just really wanted to look cool like those rappers. And I started doing drugs and now I'm stuck being an addict and all this stuff. Like, you don't hear that. Like, normally there aren't natural things that lead you in that direction.
Yeah. Well, it doesn't have to mean that is what is exactly influencing every single person into that position, but just the environment and the coolness of it with people and the things to feel like you're involved in something or hanging out and partying because it's a party or something.
That was going to be my next question is, why do you think people find it cool? What is it about drugs that gives it this mystique?
Because it takes them out of reality. Mm-hmm. It takes them out of reality. And I'm not sure if you've ever looked into pharmakia. It's witchcraft. The old Greek definition of pharmakia is witchcraft, and that's pharmaceutical. And this is a way for people to be able to be possessed by certain spirits that we can't see, that are able to influence the thoughts and the things that these people are doing. Like when they say that they see these certain shadow beings after they're up for a certain period of time or something like that. These are these other entities that people can't see until they are in a certain realm. We're energy and we're all vibrating at different frequencies, and we're inside of something that is constantly nothing but energy. And there's things here that we can't see with our own eyes, and they're around us at all times.
But we also have biology. You're going to start to talk about how these chemicals and the foods and all of those other things are going to affect us in our biology. But when it comes to drugs, it sounds like you're denying the effect that they have on our body and chemistry.
Oh, no, everything is energy. Everything is energy inside of this. It's not, everything has some type of effect on our DNA, which is still also energy. That's why it looks like energy waves when you look at the DNA. Everything is like a frequency. That's why you see the DNA looking like this. We are all frequency. We don't understand it. If you was to look through a certain type of a magnifying glass, you would see that we're nothing but atoms and molecules floating around together. It's got to be a very high intense magnifying glass. That's why there's certain hertz that they're using in the music and stuff right now that is able to aggravate and influence aggravations in us. That's why when they do the rice experiment or the sound experiment with the water or the molecules of water or ice and snowflakes, the things that they're able to do with certain hertz of music or tones changes this frequency. That's why if you really look at what the stars are, if you look through the right type of magnifying glass, it's nothing like what they're telling us. Same thing with the planets. It's all nothing but vibrations and energies. If you look at these things with the right things, now that we have the technology to be able to see these things, it's all vibrating at different vibrations, and it's all energy frequencies.
But vibrations and energy is a very, very, very general word that you can just apply to literally anything. And so to
Mhm.
use that as some sort of proof when I'm going to use like a very general term like that.
Well, um, have you ever smoked DMT?
No, actually, I do you know who Joe Rogan is?
Yes.
He loves it, man. Talks about it all the time. Talks about how it's actually like a spiritual um sort of experience where you almost leave your body and go to like another plane or something like that.
This is something that the shamans was using for thousands of years, man. And I had somebody watching my videos when I first started doing this about a year in or something. And he ended up getting a hold of me and flew down here after he had asked me if I wanted to check it out. He said that he thought that maybe I'd be interested in looking at this stuff. And I did. And I'm going to tell you what, man, you can see that we're in some kind of energetic field, holographic. I seen the ancient Mayan signs everywhere, man, and I've never seen them in my life until then. And I seen skulls and bones. I seen like death. I seen like it looked like a dome over us. You could see it. It's amazing, man. And I felt energetic when I blew the third puff out. I seen the smoke turn into little tiny digital everything. Just everything started turning digital. Everyone in the room, everything just went like 1D, like Atari, and they was all sunk into the wall with bright, vibrant colors. With it, just, dude, you can't even. I closed my eyes and I could see without my eyes open, but everything that I was pretty much programmed in my whole life inside of, like, I think they call it maybe a kaleidoscope or something like that. Is that what it is that turns?
Yep.
And okay, so
Yep.
it was a bunch of those inside my mind, but they were so tiny, but I could see everything in every single one of them. The lifestyle that I was programmed about, the women, my childhood, just so many things, thousands of things, just so tiny and small, but I could see them like I was zoomed in. And it's wild stuff, man. It's
I
wild.
I don't deny that. And like I said, Joe Rogan talks a lot about it too. And I've done a lot of acid and shrooms and things like that in the past. And I wouldn't use some sort of visuals that it causes me to have as, I guess, proof of something else. We're kind of running out of time here. Let me ask you something real quick, because I haven't heard you talk about this specifically, but in the circles that you tend to run with, this is something that gets brought up a lot. Is the earth round?
I would believe that it is some kind of energy, man.
But the energy, sure.
I
But
don't think
is it
it's spinning around in space 666,000 plus miles an hour with all stars and all planets and everything following with us, going for eternity, with no meteors hitting us, no meteors hitting all these thousands of satellites that are supposed to be up there in the air following along with us, moving around?
meteors have hit us and the satellites, though?
Yeah, I think they'd be hitting us a lot more. Wouldn't you say so?
I don't know. I don't necessarily have the education on the topic to
Neither.
talk about it, but I do know that they do talk about how they do get hit once in a while. And honestly, if you think about how big and vast the universe is supposed to be, no, I would think that it'd probably be pretty rare that if we're just a little speck in the spectrum, that it would actually be pretty rare that these things that are flying around out there just happen to hit us.
I don't know, brother. Do you think they really landed on the moon?
Yeah, Yeah, because the technology that we have today, it seems to make it pretty obvious that we have the capabilities of doing it. And so even just having cars and trains and airplanes and things like that makes it pretty obvious that we have the capability of doing it. And if we had the capability and did it, we would obviously be throwing it in everybody's faces as we are. I don't think it would be.
So you believe there's a car in space?
Wasn't that Elon Musk who did that? Yeah, he
It's
does all
supposed to
sorts
be
of
on its way to Mars, and it doesn't have a scratch or a dent or a ding or nothing on it, and it must have space metal on it or spaceship metal or something, and spaceship seats. And
are there people in this car going to Mars?
no, there's no.
Then I think it's pretty possible to just send stuff over there. It takes a long time, but I think it's possible. I think that, again, the technology that we have seems to look like, yeah, I mean, even something as simple as having a phone this small, the laptop that I'm on right now, how small it is, the fact that it has a touch screen, the fact that I can flip it over and use it as a tablet.
I completely understand. I do, but I think I think that when energy is energy and we're moving through energy, you can move through whatever other planets there are through portals. You're not going to be going outside of this like with a spaceship, like not like that. It's going to be some type of a energetic spaceship, something like.
Why for
They say that there is
my house to work? Why doesn't my car have to be some sort of?
Check this out. Listen. So if you look into some of this stuff about the DMT and stuff, and when they say that they're having these out of body experiences,
mm-hmm.
A friend of mine, the guy that turned me on to this DMT, he could go out of his body and go directly to his girlfriend's house, see her and what she's doing, come back in his body, call her up, and tell her exactly what she was doing. And she told him she felt him there. So now, when you can do something like that, what is going on that's making something like that happen? It's energy. So it must be something about, so when they say this stuff about time travel and stuff like that.
Hold on though, you're saying that is possible. To say that that's possible doesn't necessarily mean that that's the only or best way to get something.
Well, what it is when he goes home and he calls her up and tells her exactly where she's sitting and what book she's reading. It seems like he knows what he's talking about. And she said, yes, that's exactly where she's sitting. And that's the book she's reading. And she felt him right there. She knew something was in that house.
Okay. I appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, thank you, brother. And hey, I'm proud of you, man. You've got a cool look about you, man. You got a cool attitude, man, and you're very respectful and you're easy to talk to, brother. And I do apologize for that comment, man, because I had no idea what type of person you are, man, and you're a cool guy, man.
As I said when we first talked, when all you have is a hammer, everything's going to look like a nail, and that is kind of the point I would like to make to you on all of these topics overall, is that your outlook on everything is always going to come to the same conclusion almost no matter what it is. And I would just challenge you to kind of have just as much of a pessimistic feeling you have towards what everybody else does and thinks, have the same outlook on what it is you do and what you think as well, because there's chances that some people can get called out and called liars and all sorts of other things that they're not actually doing in the end. But all right, man, maybe we'll have you back on sometime. I like these conversations. I like to get into this stuff. So all right, man, I'll see you later.
Take care, brother.